Welcome to Standlee Premium Western Forage, Hay University. Today's topic will be Feeding 101. The topics covered today will be, first of all, selecting a forage. We will discuss ways to select forage, and then we'll progress into utilizing a tool developed by Standlee Premium Western Forage called the Standlee Forage Finder. We will do an example for a weanling, a yearling, a horse that's 2 years old or older, and then finally a senior horse. Then we will talk about selecting a forage based on what else is being fed, and then finally we'll conclude with a discussion of the Standlee Premium Western Forage Feed Calculator, again another tool developed exclusively by Standlee Premium Western Forage. Selecting a forage for a horse is based on the specific horse's requirements. And the specific requirement of a horse is quite variable, and it depends on several different criteria. First of all, the nutrient requirement changes with the age of the horse. As horses go from very young foals to very mature horses or older horses, senior horses, their nutrient requirements will change. The nutrient requirement also changes based on desired growth rate. The faster a horse grows, the more nutrient it requires to successfully grow at that rate. The nutrient requirement is also based on the activity of the horse. The lowest activity is that of maintenance, where the horse is doing little or no forced exercise. Then we move into performance animals, where there's more forced exercise, increasing its nutrient requirement. We also can work with mares that are pregnant or lactating. These would be brood mares of different types, as well as stallions, both in the breeding season and in the non-breeding season. And all of these influence the nutrient requirement of that horse. The forage that we select is also based on any special needs the horse has. Does he have any diseases? Is he healthy? Are there anything else going on with the horse? And then finally, selecting a forage is based on what else is being fed. In other words, how much grain, what type of grain, and can we influence that by feeding better quality forage? Let's begin by talking about a tool developed by Standlee Premium Western Forage, a tool called the Standlee Forage Finder. I'll take you through a number of examples for this particular tool. The Standlee Forage Finder utilizes a series of questions that helps the customer select the appropriate forage. Again, this is a tool that's located on the Standlee Premium Western Forage website, and you can go to that and actually utilize this tool at any time. So it is a series of questions that give the customer a good idea of what forage to select for their particular horse. The results are outputted as 3 potential forage choices. Are there wrong choices? Normally, there aren't wrong choices. There are only wrong choices when you have a specific disease condition where we need to select a specific forage to not make that disease process worse, or better, to make that disease process resolve or heal itself. So the Standlee Premium Western Forage, Standlee Forage Finder, starts with a series of questions to help that customer find the best 3 forage options. The first question utilized by the Standlee Forage Finder is, what is the age of your horse? The potential choices that you can choose are weanling, yearling, 2-year-old or older. These are generally mature horses. And then finally, the senior category. So let's begin this education process by using the Standlee Forage Finder and selecting the age of the horse as a weanling. If you selected weanling as the age of a horse, now remember, a weanling is a horse that has been weaned from its mother, no longer nursing, and these are typically foals that are somewhere in the age of 4 to 12 months. That is what we classify as a weanling. So the forage finder, if you selected a weanling, will select forages that fuel sound skeletal growth of this young horse. We have different selections for forage categories depending on the growth rate of that particular weanling. Whether we want that weanling to grow at a rapid pace, a normal growth rate, or we want to grow at a very slow rate, it will select different forage types. So the product selection, again with the Standlee Forage Finder for a weanling, if we selected rapid growth requires a product that is high in protein and high in calories to fuel that. It will suit a alfalfa-based products. So we have alfalfa pellets, alfalfa cubes, or our baled alfalfa product. If we selected a normal growth rate, that will lower the protein to a moderate level, lower the calorie or energy content again to a moderate level, and now we select mixed products. These are our alfalfa combined with grass products would be appropriate for that particular horse. Now finally, if you selected a weanling and you wanted it to grow very slowly, the forage finder would actually select our lower protein, our lower calorie options, and would select grass products. For example, the Timothy grass pellet, the Timothy grass bale, or the orchard grass pellet. 3 of our grass products would be appropriate for feeding a weanling in the slow growth process. Now let's move to selecting a horse that is older. And for this example, we're going to select a yearling. And a yearling is considered from 12 months of age until the horse is a full 24 months of age. That is a yearling. So if we selected a yearling, the forage finder will then ask, again, the growth rate that we want to achieve with that yearling. We can select rapid growth, normal growth, or slow growth. In addition, the forage finder will ask another question. It will ask if the horse is in training, and that will be a yes or no question. Many of our yearlings, by the time they're 18 months of age, still technically a yearling, will undergo some of the initial stages of training, and this allows us to select for that and to feed these horses properly. So the product recommendation for a yearling, let's for instance say we have a yearling, we want rapid growth. Again, a high protein, high energy products, the alfalfa products are going to be what are selected. If we chose normal growth, again, lowering the protein, lowering the energy, it will take our mixed forages and select 3 of those that would be appropriate. For slow growth, similar to the weanling, that's our lowest protein, lowest calorie requirements, it will select some of the grass type products. Now, if you're wondering what the effect that training has, training will move all these selections up 1 level. In other words, the training will increase the amount of protein and increase the amount of calories or energy a horse requires, and will shift all these requirements 1 up. So our normal growth with training would shift from the alfalfa mixed products to the regular alfalfa products. Now the next step that we can choose is we can choose a mature horse. And for this example, a mature horse is considered 2 years old or older. So this is from a horse that's 24 months of age on up is what we consider 2-year-old or older with the Standlee Forage Finder. So, selecting a horse that's 2-year-olds or older, what the forage finder is going to do is he's going to ask the activity of the horse. And the activity choices that you have for your mature horse are maintenance, which is limited or no riding, performance, which a horse is actively ridden or trained, a brood mare, this is a mare that's involved in reproductive activities, either as a barren mare, a pregnant mare, or a lactating mare. Or finally, we can choose a breeding stallion. If you selected on the Standlee Forage Finder a maintenance activity for a mature horse, the Forage Finder is then going to ask if that horse has any special needs. And your choices include no special needs, the horse is underweight, the horse is overweight, the horse has a carbohydrate issue or a carbohydrate sensitivity, or the horse has HYPP, which is a genetic potassium problem with the horse. The forage finder will then pick the most appropriate forage choices for the different activity or special need your horse has. So to continue with our maintenance animal, if we chose a mature horse with limited or no riding, a maintenance situation with no reproductive activity, it's going to choose a low energy, low protein type product. Our choices would be grass products, such as the orchard grass pellets, the Timothy grass premium bales, or the Timothy grass pellets. If this same mature horse with limited or no riding, with no reproduction, was also underweight, it would increase the calorie content and choose more alfalfa products. If the horse were overweight, again, the lower calorie, lower protein, grass type products would be appropriate. Now, if this mature horse with limited or no riding actually had some carbohydrate sensitivities, it would choose our low carbohydrate forages, and those would be our alfalfa products. Finally, if that horse had HYPP, which is a potassium regulation problem, again a genetic problem with these horses, it would choose the lower potassium forages. Those would be the grass forages for Standlee Premium Western Forage. Now, with our mature horse, if you actually chose that this horse was performance, that means this horse is actively being ridden or shown. The forage finder then asks another question if this horse has any special needs. So we can choose no special needs, the horse is overweight, the horse is underweight, the horse has carbohydrate sensitivities or issues, or the horse has some sort of ulceration associated with the stomach called gastric ulcers. The forage finder then picks the most appropriate forage choices for the horse with the special needs category. If we chose a performance horse, actively ridden or trained, with moderate activity, it's going to choose an alfalfa mix. Now, if that horse is underweight, it's going to change from the alfalfa mix to even the higher calorie, higher protein, straight alfalfa type products. If this horse, actively ridden, is actually overweight, it's going to go with the lower energy, lower protein forages, those being our grass products. Again, if it's carbohydrate sensitive, it's going to choose our low carbohydrate option, low sugar option, which is our alfalfa products. And then finally, if a horse has ulcers associated with the stomach, gastric ulcers, the forage finder is going to select alfalfa forages, which are high in calcium, which have the ability to buffer some of that stomach acid, thereby helping prevent ulcers from occurring with our performance horses. The next choice you could have selected was if you had a brood mare, and then that program, the Standlee Forage Finder, will ask you questions relative to the mare. Is that mare in early pregnancy? Is that mare in late pregnancy? Is that mare in early lactation, or is that mare in late lactation? These are the potential selections you have with respect to brood mares. With the brood mare, with pregnant or lactating, if we chose early pregnancy, okay, early pregnancy is when the mare is pregnant from conception through the first 4 months of pregnancy. The nutrient requirements are actually very low during that time because the fetus is relatively small in comparison to the size of the mare. To account for those lower nutrient requirements of that developing fetus, it would select grass-type products. Now, if we selected late pregnancy being defined as the mare being 5 months pregnant to term, which is 11 months pregnant, it's going to shift and utilize our higher nutrient products, our alfalfa mix products, to give that mare the nutrition opportunity to develop a sound fetus or a sound foal. For early lactation, that's defined as from when the foal is born through the first 3 months of lactation when that mare is nursing the foal. That's the highest nutrient requirements of any horse. We're going to select our highest nutrient quality hay, and that would be our alfalfa products. And finally, if you chose late lactation, this is lactation where the mare is nursing the foal from 4 months until you wean that foal, and weaning can be anywhere from 5 months to 8 months. That mare's requirement for nutrients begins to decline because her milk production is declining, so we can decrease from our straight alfalfa products and choose more of our alfalfa mix products, which have a lower level of both energy and protein. If you selected Stallion as your choice of horse, the Forage Finder will actually then ask the breeding status of that stallion, whether he is currently breeding mares or if that stallion is in the non-breeding season. These are the choices that the Forage Finder will ask you. For stallions, if you recommended or you selected that you had a stallion that was not currently breeding mares or in the off season, that stallion would require low protein and low energy, and he would select some of the grass products is what the Forage Finder would recommend to you. Orchard grass pellets, Timothy grass premium bale, or Timothy grass pellets. On the other hand, if that stallion is actively breeding mares, he has a higher nutrient requirement for both protein and energy, and it's going to select the alfalfa mix products. Alfalfa oat cubes, for example, alfalfa Timothy chop, or alfalfa grass bales. These are the choices that the Forage Finder would give you. The other choice you can select for age of the horse is you can actually select a senior. And a senior is an aged horse, and they're defined as a horse that can no longer eat its normal diet and maintain weight. Now, this is not a function of chronologic age because we all know that horses, like humans, do not all age exactly the same. If we selected a senior, the Forage Finder was then going to ask us additional question. They are going to ask, does that senior horse have special needs? Is that senior horse underweight? Is that senior horse overweight? Does that senior horse have carbohydrate issues, sugar sensitivities? Or does that senior horse have teeth issues or dentition issues such as poor or missing teeth? If we selected a senior horse that is nutrition senior, okay, we're going to select a pellet or a cube. If those senior horse has no special needs, we can choose the alfalfa mix products. Again, these would be pellets or cubed. If that senior horse was underweight, we'd want our highest nutrient products. Those would be our alfalfa products. If that senior horse were overweight, we would want to choose our grass products. Again, with senior horses, those would be in the forms of cubes or pellets. If the senior horse was carbohydrate sensitive, we'd want to choose our lower carbohydrate products. These would be things such as our alfalfa or our alfalfa mix product. And then finally, if that senior horse had teeth issues, poor or missing teeth, we'd want to choose the alfalfa or alfalfa mix products that have been pelleted or cubed. That's very important. If they don't have teeth, we need to make sure that we feed those to them as pellets or cubes, and then also soak those so the horse can get them adequately smashed so they can get them swallowed and digested. We'll now discuss what else is being fed in the diet and how that influences the forage choice, and ultimately how changing the forage choice can influence what else we need to feed in our diet for our horses. When we consider what else is being fed for our horses, we need to realize if our customers are feeding poor forage, okay, the forage component is not providing a significant amount of nutrients, this horse is going to require more fortified grain to meet its nutrient requirements. In other words, because the hay is so poor in quality, we have to feed more fortified grain to get the vitamins and minerals into that horse. The other thing that we need to realize is the more grain or the more fortified grain that we feed horse, the bigger the chance that the horse is going to have colic, which is digestive upset. So what happens if we feed better quality forage? How does that influence how much grain we actually have to feed a horse? To illustrate this point, we're going to use an example of a lactating mare. Again, this is a mare that's producing milk for a nursing foal. We'll use that this mare is 1,100 pounds in body weight. She's in early lactation, which means from the time of foaling through the first 3 months of lactation. Her diet now consists of 20 pounds of local grass forage and 10 pounds of a grain concentrate designed specifically for a broodmare. The graph shown here indicates by the red line that that diet is adequate. The diet is adequate for DE, digestible energy, CP, crude protein, Ca, calcium, P, phosphorus, Cu, copper, Zn, zinc, Se, selenium, Me, magnesium, I, iodine, Lys is lysine, vitamin A, and vitamin E. And you can see from that diet, with that mare eating 30 pounds of feed, that she's still deficient in crude protein and still deficient in lysine, eating 10 pounds of fortified grain. Now, if we change that diet for this mare, she's the same 1,100 pound mare, still in early lactation. What we're going to feed is the same 20 pounds of local grass forage, but instead of feeding 10 pounds of grain, we're going to feed 5 pounds of Standlee Premium Western Forage alfalfa and only 5 pounds of that broodmare grain. You can see now by looking at the graph that that mare is adequate in all of her dietary needs, and she's eating 5 pounds less grain, which would decrease her chances of digestive upset or colic. Now, the final thing that we're going to talk about is another tool developed by Standlee Premium Western Forage called the Standlee Feed Calculator. The Standlee Feed Calculator calculates the benefit of replacing poor quality hay with high quality premium Western forage, and it also calculates the potential to reduce the amount of grain fed to those horses. You can choose whether you want to replace 25%, 50%, 75%, or 100% of your poor quality local hay. The Standlee Feed Calculator, based on the energy and or nutrients from feeding premium Western forage, you will find that you can potentially feed less grain per day. So in other words, replacing some of the poor forage with good quality premium Western forage, you could feed less grain in the diet. If we feed less grain, we get less digestive upset and a healthier horse. If we have a healthier horse and less digestive upset, we can lower our veterinary bills or our veterinary costs. Feeding long stem forage will also occupy your horse longer. In other words, if we reduce the amount of grain that's being fed, increase the amount of forage that's being fed as Standlee Premium Western Forage, it will give your horse more time to eat, and that horse will occupy itself, and you'll have less development of stall vices such as wood chewing. I have selected the following as interactive questions that hopefully you should be able to answer based on the information that was presented in this presentation. So the first question, a yearling is a fully mature horse and should only be fed grass products. True or false? Well, the answer to that would of course be false. A horse has to be at least 24 months of age to be considered mature. Secondly, many mature horses can be fed grass or alfalfa depending on their special needs, so a yearling should not necessarily only be fed grass products. The second question, a horse with HYPP should only eat alfalfa products. True or false? This is actually false. Typically, with Standlee Premium Western Forage, our alfalfa products contain the highest amount of potassium and would give these horses the most problem. We always recommend that you analyze your existing forage to see which Standlee Premium Western Forage would complement that best, but horses with HYPP can and should eat alfalfa products. Question 3. Alfalfa products are good for horses with gastric ulcers. True or false? This is true. The high calcium content with alfalfa is actually good and will buffer some of the hydrochloric acid associated with gastric ulcers. The fourth question. Stallions during the breeding season have low energy and protein requirements. True or false? The answer to that question is actually false. Stallions during the breeding season, when they're actively breeding mares, have high energy and high protein requirements. And number 5, nutritionally senior horses need pelleted or cube forage. Remember, a nutritionally senior horse is one that can no longer eat its normal diet and maintain its weight. So the question, nutritionally senior horses need pelleted or cube forage, true or false? That is true. Remember, they do not have proper dentition or tooth function, and they need these pelleted or cube products to be able to adequately digest and absorb their feed. If you should have additional questions that weren't covered in this training session, feel free to contact Standlee. You can email us at customerservice@standleeforage.com and have your specific question answered. You can also phone and talk to one of our representatives at 800-398-0819. Thank you for watching this presentation.